Nah, you see, yeah. Installing on official release with pip. Install pip standard alone to year description of the desired. You may need to update it. That set a lot to cover. Akhirnya ya. Penta nih install Django gitu doang kah? Simpelnya lagi. Gue tadi udah set up Django nya sih. Udah tadi lah. Django script. Oh, mana ya? Nah, itu keren ya. Itu deh. Jadi obrol tes ya di sini sih. Udah untuk kecil. Yep. Ah ya. Mantap lah ya. Mana sih ini? Tes. Mikrofon. Tes. Enggak mikrofon. Tes. 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 Enggak ini. Tes. Itu gimana? So guys, back to the topic. Jadi ini juga enggak. Jadi kan we have the model. Jadi kita udah punya website, udah deploy di VPS sharing. Itu kita punya set. Nah ini nih sudah kita bikin di pembahasan project kemarin. Walaupun untuk loading gambar dan videonya agak berat karena memang file besar. Di sini tujuan website itu untuk memprediksi potong. Jadi tujuan website itu untuk memprediksi jenis kecelakaan dan tipe mobil atau tipe kendaraan apa yang mengalami kecelakaan fisik. Biasaan berfungsi dalam fokus pada prediksi kecelakaan tipe mobil. berdasarkan video yang diupload oleh pengguna ataupun diberikan melalui URL. Sebenarnya spesifikasi yang dibutuhkan oleh iklan kita tercinta itu adalah untuk mendeteksi untuk sekaligus melakukan scraping di internet. Ya, untuk melakukan scraping kita butuh Google Cloud dan price a lot. Ini penjelasannya belum diperbaiki karena modern. Ini contoh videonya. Saya delete. Ini sebenarnya saya kasih threshold. Nah, image di right model that you want to use our website. So yes. Ada mau video sama dia kalau bocah kemudian data image video ke model lagi terus keluarkan hasil feedback ke website. Cuma masalah kalau kita mau deploy model sumber kita butuh SDI atau fast. Karena kalau SDI itu Docker. Misalnya Docker berat dan penyimpanan udah penuh, jadi kita pakai django supaya apa? Oke. Oke, nice. Kita harus explore ya, Jom. Different complicated. Ini sekarang di virtual environment. Ada seluruh yang terkait di virtual environment agar dependencies kebetulan cara gimana? Make sure check the specific add plan dan database. Model is the single definition source of information about your data. It contains essential field and behavior data you are storing. Generally, is model mapped to single database table. Each model is Python class that serves as django DB model. Each attribute of the model represents the database field. Build up of this, Django gives you automatically generate database access API. Wow. Good. Yes, ketemu. Using model, salah up from Django model. Nice. Oke, model kaspasan pakai paradigma object oriented programming atau OOP. Model data. Ini untuk database-nya. What we want to use cara kita embed buat cara kita buat website-nya gitu. Website kita buat. Warisan, inheritance, dan juga sebagainya. Oke, queries. Ya, nothing. Aneh gitu ya. Start website. Learn Django in 30 minutes.
You're looking to make your app the best it can be. It sounds simple, but the reality is anything but.
In this video, I'll show you how to build a simple Django application as fast as possible. Afterwards, you'll know how to set up a Django project, how to configure URLs, how to create a simple database model, and how to display dynamic data using templates. In case you aren't aware, Django is a powerful web framework for Python that's been used to build websites like Instagram, Spotify, and Dropbox. With that said, let's get started after a quick word from the sponsor of this video. I've got some great news for you guys. Recently, I've got to know a fantastic team who created a free tool that can supercharge your development journey, especially if you work with Django. Now, this company is called Attention, and they've sponsored this video so that I can tell you about their SaaS boilerplate. Picture this, you've got a brilliant idea, but you're dreading the hours or weeks of coding that lies ahead just to get the project set up. Now that's where SaaS boilerplate comes in. This is not just a fancy name, this is a tool that literally removes all of that tedious work and lets you dive in right to the heart of your project. Now this comprehensive kit covers everything your SaaS application needs. Front-end, back-end, API, scalable AWS-based architecture, and intuitive covers everything your SaaS application needs. Front-end, back-end, so you dive in right to the heart of your project. Now this comprehensive kit covers everything your SaaS application needs. Front-end, back-end, API, scalable AWS-based architecture, and intuitive admin panel your SaaS application needs. Front-end, back-end, API, scalable AWS-based architecture, and intuitive admin panel. Workers, it's all there. It even includes essential ready-to-use features like authentication, notifications, and yes, even payment and subscription systems with a Stripe integration. And for you content wizards out there, there's a CMS integration with Contentful. What's more, the team behind this actually has a dedicated Discord community that you can join to get any assistance that you need. So why spend the weeks setting up your code base when you could be working on a core product and building features that provide users real value? Check out SaaS Boilerplate from the link in the description and get started today, skipping through all of those tedious setup steps. Alright, so let's begin here by setting up Django. To do that, we're going to open some kind of directory. You can see I have this demo directory. And if you're on Mac or Linux, you can type pip3 install. And to do that, you'll see that it will generate a new directory for you that contains a bunch of files that are pre-generated by Django. Let me walk through what these files do, and then we can create a Django application. So the first file we have here is a init.py. Now, init.py is a special file that tells Python to treat this directory like a Python package. Next, we have ASGI and WSGI. These are special configuration files that we don't need Python to treat this directory like a Python new directory for you that contains a bunch of files that are pre-generated created by Django. Let me walk through what these files do, and then we can create a Django application. So the first file we have here is a init.py. Now, init.py is a special file that tells Python to treat this directory. See that it will generate a new directory for you that contains a bunch of files that are pre-generated by Django.
Django config name the system module. Oh, itu sih. Easy. Kita menyediakan sih. Kita punya MV juga.
Let me walk through what these files do, and then we can create a Django application. So the first file we have here is a init.py. Now, init.py is a special file that tells Python to treat this directory like a Python package. Next, we have ASGI and WSGI. These are special configuration files that we don't need to deal with. These are going to allow Django to actually communicate with the web server. We then have a settings.py file. Straightforward, this contains a bunch of different settings. We'll go in here quite often when we need to install different Django applications, install plugins, change some of our middleware, and do things like modify our database engines. If you're not aware, Django is compatible with many different databases, and you can configure all of that type of stuff inside of the settings file. We then have a urls.py file. This file will
We can use MySQL, bro.
Allow us to configure different URL routes that we can then kind of route or direct the different Django applications, which I'll get into in 1 second. Next, we have a manage.py file. This is a special file, again, that actually acts as a command line tool. It allows us to run special commands to do things like make database migrations, run our Python server, and all kinds of other things like creating users for our Django admin panel, which we'll get into in 1 minute. All right, so now let's quickly talk about Django applications. So right now we have something known as a Django project. The Django project has these main files that I just discussed, but if we actually want to have any executable code or be able to see a kind of website appearing, we need to create something known as a Django app. Now, a Django Django app is meant to be a standalone application that you can plug and play, meaning I can take it out of this Django project and put it into another Django project. These apps contain things like database models, different views or routes, templates, all kinds of other stuff we can have inside of our applications. So what we need to do whenever we're working with Django is create an app. So to make an app, what we're going to do is go to our terminal, we're going to cd into the directory where we have our now Django project, which is called demo, and we're going to run the command python manage.py and then create app. And actually that's going to be start app. Then we're going to put the name of the app. In this case, I can just do something like my app. When I do this, it's going to create an application inside of here called my app, which contains a bunch of different files, which we're going to work in just 1 second. Now, once we've created this application, we actually need to
Python manage. CD.
to link this to our Django project. To do that, we need to go into this main folder, which is the same name of our project, go to settings.py, scroll down to where we see installed applications, and then place a string containing the name of our new app. In this case, it's going to be my app. This will essentially install the application and allow our Django project to now view any of the new. Go to settings.py, scroll down to where we see installed applications, and then place a string containing the name of our new app. In this case, it's going to be my app. This will essentially install the application and allow our Django project to now view any of the code we put in this app. Now, just to clarify apps a little bit more, we can have different apps for different purposes. So we may have an app for authentication. We may have an app for specific user types, so maybe admins or moderators. We may have an app that allows us to view the main content of our website. There's all kinds of different applications we can create, and we can separate different logic into different applications where it makes sense to do so. Now that we've created this app, what we want to do is go into the app and start creating some simple URLs and some routes. So first of all, let's just have a look at some of the files we have inside of it. So again, init.py, we've talked about that. Admin.py, this allows us to register database models so we can view them on our admin panel. We have apps.py, which we don't need to worry about. Models.py, where we'll place our database models. Test, where we can write some automated test cases. And then views, which is mainly where we'll work, where we will create different views or routes that we can access on our website. For now, though, I actually want to create a new file here called urls.py. This is where we'll place different URL routes and then connect them to our views. So let's go into views here and create a simple view just so we can test how things work. So to create a view or a route, what we're going to do is type define. So we're going to create a function. We'll give this a name, something like home. We're going to take in the request object as a parameter, which will allow us to access things like query parameters and the body of different requests that are being sent to this function. And then from here, we're going to return some type of response. And we can render some HTML templates, which I'm going to show you in 1 second, or we can actually return an HTTP response. So I'm going to import at the top of my program here, HTTP response. I'm going to go return HTTP response like that, and inside of here I'm just going to return a string, which is hello world. This just allows us to return some very simple data, which we can then display on the website. So now that we have this view, which is simply a function that returns some kind of response, we need to actually connect this to our application through a route or a URL. To do that, we'll go to this newly created urls.py file inside of our application. Notice we have one here, and we have one inside of our project. Now inside of here, what we need to do is create some URLs. So we're going to say from django.urls, import path. We're then going to say from dot import views, and we're going to import this views.py file that we have here. Now we're going to specify a variable, which is URL patterns. We're going to make this equal to a list, and inside of here, we're going to specify paths that will connect a URL pattern to a specific path or view. So for now, I'm going to put an empty path, which just means we go to the root kind of URL of our website. I shouldn't have said root, kind of the base URL of our website. We're going to connect this to the views.home view or function. Then we're going to specify that this has a name of home. Essentially, what this means is when we go to this kind of empty string path here, we're going to call the views.home function, which is this view, which will then return this HTTP response, which will allow us to view that. Okay, so that's great. We've now configured the URL within our application. However, we also need to configure the URL to our application. I know this seems a bit weird, but let's go inside of demo now, go to urls.py, and we're going to create a URL route that allows us to connect to our application. So here, inside of demo, we have all of the base routes or URLs for our entire project. We then need to kind of create a URL here that will link into our specific applications. You'll see why this is important in 1 second, but for now, let's create that link. So we're going to say path, we're going to put an empty string here, and then we're going to use this function include, which will import from right here. Inside of include, we're going to specify the name of our application, which actually in this case is my app, dot, and then URLs. Now, all this is going to say is that whenever I go to this empty string, I want to forward all of the different URLs or routes into my apps.urls, where they will then be handled here. So to give you a better example, let's imagine I did something like my app slash. If I did that, now what would happen is whenever I go to my app slash in my URL bar or my address bar, it would then take the remaining part of this URL and forward that into this route right here. Meaning if I wanted to access my homepage, I would now need to go to my website domain and then my app slash like that. If I go there, then anything after this slash is going to be passed into this URLs file, where it will then be handled here. Meaning if I had something like home here, then what I would need to do to access that route is type my app slash home. So the home component, so the next kind of part of the route will be handled here, whereas the main part will be handled by this main application. Now this is cool because this allows us to have different prefixes for our different applications and have similar URLs within different applications that can still be accessed because we have this main prefix. Hopefully that makes sense, but for now we're just going to make this an empty string. We're going to remove this and we'll go back here and make this an empty string as well, so we're able to view this. We're going to look at the URL here, which is the URL that is running our server. Remove this and we'll go back here and make this an empty string as well, so we're able to view this route. Now that we've done this, let's run our application to make sure all of this works, then move on to some templates and databases. So to do this, we're going to type Python manage.py, and then run server. Now, when we run the server here, you can see that we're getting an error. Don't worry about that. We'll fix that in 1 second. For now, I'm going to look at the URL here, which is the URL that is running our server. So localhost port 8000. I'm going to press on Control and then press that. I also could just type that into my address bar, and you'll see that I get hello world appearing on my screen. Okay, all of that is great. And to stop the server, I'm going to hit Control C on my keyboard. Now, what I want to do is show you how we can use something known as a template. So a template is essentially a reusable HTML file that allows us to display dynamic data. Now, we can have templates that inherit from other templates. I'm going to quickly show you how that works. So to do that, what we need to do is create a templates folder inside of our application. So I'm going to go to my app. I'm going to create a folder called templates. Very important that you name it templates. If you don't name it templates, this won't work. Inside of templates, we're going to create a new file called base.html. Inside of here, we can use something known as the Django templating engine, which allows us to display dynamic data. Now, I'm just going to paste in the template here because I don't want to write all of it out in this video, considering we're trying to go fast. Now, what this is a simple HTML document that has a bootstrap nav bar, and I just want to show you how the template works. Now, inside of these templates, we can create things known as blocks. These blocks are overridable pieces of content. So I have a block title. I'm ending the block here, meaning I can then override this title in another template. Continuing, I go down here and I have block content and end block. Meaning I can inherit from this template, get all of the code that's inside of here, so I get the nav bar, and then I can change whatever's inside of these different blocks. To illustrate that, let's make another template here called home.html. Inside of home, we're going to paste in some template code here. So let me just grab this and finish this off. So type end block here. And we're going to put a paragraph tag saying this is the home page, and then end our paragraph tag. Now, what this does is extend the base.html template, meaning all of the code that exists inside of base.html, we're going to import here so we can have a consistent style for all of the different pages in our website without having to rewrite all of that code. We're then going to override the content that exists inside of our blocks. So for the block title, we're going to put homepage. For our content block, we're simply going to put a paragraph tag that says this is the homepage. That's great. We now have our templates. Now that we've done that, we simply need to render the template. To render the template, we're going to go to our views file inside of our application. We're going to use this render function. For the render function, we're going to pass request, which is right here as the first argument. We're then going to pass the name of our template, which is home.html. Again, this only works if you have it inside of the templates directory. Now that we've done that, we can rerun our server and we can view this template. So let's run that. Again, I go to the error for now, and you can see that when I have a look at my website, I get this kind of nav bar appearing, and then I get this is the home page inside of my content block. Now that we've done that, let's have a quick look at databases. All right, so I've opened up this models.py file inside of my app application. What we're going to do now is create a database model that we can then access and use from Django. Now, Django is great because it provides something known as an